everything you know about naval power requiring massive billion-dollar aircraft carriers. Saab's Gungnir logic is officially stripping the crown from the supercarrier by turning the Gripen E into a distributed sea denial nightmare. We are exploring how Swedish software sovereignty is weaponizing short runways to paralyze enemy fleets forever. What happens when a fighter jet stops thinking like an airplane and starts acting like a strategic naval deterrent? By integrating the Gungnir system, Saab has unlocked a way to deny sea control without a single deck landing. This is the future of littoral defense, where software transforms light fighters into giants. The era of the massive hull is ending, replaced by a stealthy, distributed force that hides in plain sight. Saab is redefining modern warfare by leveraging the Gripen E's unique short takeoff capability against the world's largest navies. Discover how this Swedish ingenuity is creating a tactical independence that no fleet can ignore. In 2026, the old picture of naval power is starting to crack. For decades, the symbol of dominance at sea was the supercarrier, a floating airbase protected by destroyers, submarines, radars, and missile shields. But in today's contested waters, that same strength has become a weakness. A carrier is powerful, but it is also huge, expensive, visible, and politically dangerous to lose. The U.S. Navy is already reviewing the future cost logic of Ford-class carriers, while the USS Gerald R. Ford itself cost roughly $13 billion to manufacture. That tells us one thing clearly. Modern sea control is no longer only about who has the biggest ship. It is about who can make the sea too dangerous to enter. This is where Saab's new Gungnir logic changes the game. Gripen E does not need a carrier deck to threaten enemy ships. It does not need a giant floating runway in the middle of the ocean. Saab says Gripen E is built for dispersed operations from unprepared road bases, and official Saab material describes road strip operations around 16 meters wide and 800 meters long. In other words, a normal stretch of road can become a temporary launch point, a hidden airbase, and a strategic naval weapon. That is the real paradigm shift. A country does not need to match a superpower carrier for carrier. It only needs mobile fighters, long-range anti-ship missiles, local sensors, and unpredictable launch locations. Saab's RBS15 Gungnir is designed for air, sea, and land launch platforms, with a range of over 300 kilometers, sea-skimming flight, all-weather capability, and an improved radar seeker. When this missile is paired with Gripen E's road-based survival model, the fighter becomes more than an aircraft. It becomes a moving naval deterrent. So the message is simple. The future of sea denial may not come from a massive carrier group. It may come from a small fighter hidden on a road, waiting silently, launching from land, and forcing billion-dollar warships to stay far away. This is not about replacing navies completely. It is about changing the cost equation. In modern contested waters, tactical mobility on land can now create strategic pressure at sea without a single flight deck.
The real power of Gungnir is not just the missile hanging under the Gripen E. The real power is the logic behind it. Saab describes RBS15 Gungnir as a system with over 300 kilometers range, sea-skimming flight, all-weather capability, and improved radar target seeker and over-the-horizon targeting. That means a Gripen E does not need to fly directly over a hostile fleet to become dangerous. It can launch from distance, stay outside the most lethal defensive bubble, and let the missile approach low over the water where detection time becomes brutally short. This is where Gripen E stops looking like a normal multi-role fighter and starts looking like a mobile strike node. Gungnir can be used from air, sea, and land platforms, which means the same missile family can appear from a fighter, a ship, or a coastal launcher. For an enemy commander, that creates confusion. The threat is no longer coming from one fixed direction. It can come from a road-based Gripen, a hidden truck launcher, or a naval platform feeding into the same maritime strike picture. But the deeper advantage is software control. Gripen E's design is built around adaptability, easier weapon integration, common communication systems, and networked data links. Saab also highlights its split avionics approach, where tactical systems can be updated and integrated faster without disturbing flight-critical systems. In simple words, This gives operators more room to shape mission data, weapons integration, and tactical behavior compared with a closed black box fighter model. So Gungnir logic is not only about firing a missile, it is about connecting sensors, fighters, coastal batteries, naval units, and command centers into one distributed maritime strike web. Gripen E becomes the fast-moving brain in that web, finding, receiving, sharing, and striking. And that is the shift. The aircraft is no longer just a fighter carrying an anti-ship weapon. It becomes a networked naval deterrent, designed to make every hostile ship question whether the coastline, the road network, or even the empty sky around it is already part of the kill chain.
This is where Gungnir logic becomes truly dangerous. One Gripen E is a fighter, but a cluster of dispersed Gripens operating from different road bases, hidden locations, and coastal airstrips becomes something much bigger, a moving sensor net over the sea. Saab says Gripen E's advanced sensors support cross-domain data gathering, fusion, and real-time information sharing, which means one aircraft does not have to see everything alone. One Gripen can detect, another can confirm, another can stay silent, and another can launch. In the littoral zone, where islands, coastlines, radar shadows, and civilian traffic already create confusion, this makes stealthy surface ships far less comfortable. Stealth is still useful, but it is no longer a magic shield when multiple sensors are sharing one fused picture. And then comes the electronic warfare layer. Gripen E is not just entering the maritime battlespace with speed, it enters with deception. Saab's Erexus family is built around detecting, deceiving, and countering advanced threats, while Gripen's network-centric design combines sensors, active jammers, and secure data links to help pilots see the unseen and defeat complex threats. In simple words, before the missile arrives, the electronic attack begins. Carrier strike group defenses depend on a clean picture. Radars, data links, airborne warning aircraft, and ship sensors all working together. But if Gripen's EW suite starts creating noise, false signals, and confusion during a low-level maritime approach, that clean picture becomes unstable. This is the nightmare scenario for a fleet commander. The attack is not coming from one aircraft, one direction, or one predictable line. RBS15 Gungnir is designed for multi-platform engagement, low-altitude terminal maneuvers, active radar seeking, target discrimination, and even simultaneous time-on-target effects. That means missiles launched from different places can be coordinated to pressure the same target window, forcing ship defenses to react from multiple angles at almost the same moment. So the Gripen E is no longer just a multi-role fighter carrying an anti-ship missile. In this logic, it becomes one node inside a distributed maritime strike web. The coastline becomes part of the weapon system. The road network becomes part of the airbase. The fighter becomes the sensor, the jammer, and the launch platform. And the enemy ship, even if it is modern and low observable, now faces a terrifying question. Is it being tracked by one aircraft or by an invisible network already preparing the strike?
This is where the Gripen Gungnir logic becomes bigger than combat. It becomes an economic sovereignty model. A modern blue water navy is not just expensive to build, it is expensive to keep alive. The U.S. Government Accountability Office says around 70% of a ship's life cycle cost comes from operations and maintenance, and the Congressional Budget Office estimates the U.S. Navy's 2025 shipbuilding plan would average about $40.1 billion per year from 2025 to 2054. That is the reality smaller nations cannot ignore. Sea power is no longer only about ambition, it is about sustainability. Gripen offers a different path. Instead of building a giant fleet to challenge a giant fleet, a country can build a smart coastal defense network, road-based fighters, mobile missile batteries, coastal sensors, naval patrol assets, and long-range anti-ship weapons like Gungnir. Saab says Gripen is built for low maintenance, high availability, dispersed road-based operations, and rapid re-engagement, with the Gripen E able to refuel and rearm in around 15 minutes with limited crew and equipment. That is why the smart fighter philosophy matters. Smaller nations do not need to dominate every ocean. They need to protect their own waters, their shipping lanes, their ports, and their exclusive economic zones. A Gripen-based coastal defense fleet gives them a way to project power without copying a superpower navy. It turns geography into a weapon. Roads become runways, coastal sensors become targeting eyes, and every island, highway, and hidden strip becomes part of a national defense shield. The real tactical independence comes from turnaround speed. Saab's support material says Gripen can take off or land from an 800 by 16-meter road strip, needs no fixed installations, and an air-to-air turnaround can be done in less than 10 minutes with 1 technician and 5 conscript mechanics. That means the enemy cannot simply destroy one airbase and end the fight. The launch point keeps moving, the timing keeps changing, and the fighter keeps returning over critical shipping lanes before the opponent can predict the next strike window. So the core argument is simple. Gungnir gives Gripen the reach, but Gripen's operating model gives Gungnir independence. Together, they create a coastal deterrent that is cheaper than a blue water navy, harder to target than a fixed airbase, and more politically realistic for small and mid-sized nations. This is not about replacing every warship. It is about giving a nation the power to say, you may enter the sea, but you will not enter it safely. By the end of this decade, Gungnir logic may force navies to rethink one of their oldest assumptions, that sea power must be answered with bigger ships. The new threat is different. It is not always a destroyer facing another destroyer, or a carrier facing another carrier. It can be a Gripen E hidden on land, supported by mobile sensors, launching a sea-skimming missile from beyond the obvious battle line. Saab describes RBS15 Gungnir with over 300-kilometer range, sea-skimming flight, all-weather capability, and launch options from air, sea, and land platforms. That means future naval defense will not only be about protecting ships from other ships, it will be about surviving a strike web that begins deep inside the coastline. And this creates a psychological problem for any fleet commander. A carrier group can track ports, air bases, and known missile sites. But what happens when the launch point is not fixed? Gripen E is designed to operate from dispersed and unprepared road bases, and Saab says it can be refueled and rearmed in around 15 minutes with limited ground crew and equipment. That turns roads, highways, and temporary strips into moving pressure points. The enemy is no longer asking, where is the airbase? The enemy is asking, which road becomes the airbase next? This is the invisible power of the system. The fighter may not be sitting on a carrier deck. It may not even be visible until the last moment. But the threat is always present because the network is always moving. Gungnir adds the strike reach. Gripen adds the mobility. Electronic warfare and data links add confusion, and the coastline becomes a living defense system. Modern naval thinkers are already warning that precision weapons and unmanned systems are removing the old sanctuary of naval bases, pushing navies towards new doctrine and more resilient operations. So the future of maritime power projection may not belong only to the largest armadas. It may belong to the nations that understand geography, mobility, software, and timing. Swedish ingenuity has not magically made small countries stronger than global navies, but it has changed the equation. A coastal defender no longer has to match the enemy ship for ship. It only has to make every approach uncertain, every radar picture incomplete, and every movement towards the coast feel like a calculated risk. That is the final message of Saab's new Gungnir logic. The sea can be denied without owning the sea. A small nation using smart fighters, mobile launch points, and long-range missiles can create a wall of doubt around its coastline. And in modern warfare, doubt is power. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay connected for more defense updates.